Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Mundane to Magical Online Summit series. My name is Louise Matson, and as always, I'm truly blessed to be your host. I hope you all enjoyed yesterday as we kicked off the summit with the first live interactive call. And today we have an equally amazing call lined up for you. Unfortunately, due to scheduling, we were unable to speak live with our next beautiful speaker, but regardless, you will all receive the awesome light and coded energy transmissions no matter where you are or when you listen in. So without further ado, I'm really excited to welcome Beth Dobler to the Mundane to Magical series. For those of you who've never experienced Beth's energy and work before, you're in for a real treat. Beth is a former trial attorney turned energy healer, an intuitive spiritual counselor, and certified intuitive strategist, medium, and divine channel. Beth communicates with not only your higher self, but with spirit guides, angels, and ancestors for messages, guidance, and healing. She combines this guidance with a breakthrough technique that identifies and clears blocks, stuck points, and patterns quickly so that you can open to a life lived on purpose and in abundance and with ease and grace. Sounds good, right? And the topic for today's discussion is the energy of flow, aligned with the crystalline light of abundance. And so it's my absolute honor to welcome you to the show, Beth.
Thank you. It's my delight, my honor and delight to be here with you, Louise.
So just in case there's some members of the audience that hasn't come across your work before, I just wondered if, first of all, you would just like to share a little bit about your journey from being this attorney to becoming this energy healer who has the ability to unlock and unblock people so that they can align with their true abundance.
Well, every time I hear that intro, it makes me laugh because it's really hard for me to believe who I was and who I am, that it's the same person. So when I was a very small child, I wanted to be an actor. And somehow, without any 3D human this world understanding, I knew that was likely going to mean I needed to have a day job. And then I had the flu. So back in those days, for many of your audience that may be younger, they don't remember the black and white TVs with a knob and the channels that you have to turn them. There, so my family brought in the little portable black and white for me to watch because I was supposed to be home for a week. We also had doctors who made house calls back then who said she needs to stay home for a week. So I was up late watching a show called Judge for the Defense, which is about a Texas trial attorney. And I remember sitting up and saying, that's it, that's what I'll do. There's only 12 of them, the audience being the jury. They're in a box, they can't clap, but they can't leave either. That's what I'll do. From that day, at the age of 9 forward until my first year of law school, I never inquired further. I did I had babysat for a woman who was an attorney who took me to court, but it never dawned on me that meant I would wear a suit, be in an office, and it all got shaken up my first year when I realized these people I was going to law school with were going to be my colleagues, and I didn't fit with them. But I plunged ahead because my mental mind was super strong. And I didn't have any idea back then that the mind was meant to serve the heart and the heart was meant to lead. So I went forward, and 27 years later, after feeling like my will to live was being sucked out of me, I said, I can't do this anymore. Actually, I knew I couldn't do it, but I didn't say that. I got drunk one midweek and passed out on the couch in my house. I had a cocktail table in front of me where my twin grandsons, who were then about 2, maybe 2.5, had their pictures there. And every night they lived in California, I was in Chicago. I would kiss their pictures goodnight. And, my daughters lived out here. I have a lot of family in Chicago, but the heart of my family was out here. And so I woke up after crying myself to sleep, and I heard a voice that said, "You will not survive if you continue to live this way." And I'd heard these voices before over the course of my life, and usually in that situation where there was a trauma, a crisis, something was bad was happening. I had definitely been saved by my angels more than once. In fact, when I first started doing this work, and really embracing it, communicating with the angelic realm, I discovered I have 3 guardian angels. And I said, "Well, isn't this unusual?" They said, "Most, but you've been a handful." So apparently it was known before I came here that I was going to be a handful. So long story short, everything that I planned and how I thought I would make the transition out here, none of it happened. And I ended up coming out here thinking I was going to come out here with no job and not very much money, but just this inner burning call that I had to do this. And then everything began to align from that. And my older daughter, the mother of those twins, was getting a new job and said, "Our nanny is, we're about done with her and she's about done with us. What would you think of taking care of the twins?" And I was so excited, but also completely overwhelmed because I had been a working mother. I never stayed home with my children full time. And even though caretaking comes naturally to me, it was quite a stretch. And so I came out here and began to do that. In this one particular morning that I can see, I'm actually looking at a very similar couch to the one involved in this transformational story. And the twins were then 3, 2 little boys. No experience raising boys. I have brothers, but that's different, and not twins and not stay at home. So it was like 7:30 in the morning, and I was ready to like kill them both because they were not listening. They were making me crazy. We had plans with the neighbor who was also I wasn't a mother, but she was a stay-at-home mother. And I was running everything like I ran my law practice. And so I said, as they were running around throwing their clothes, and I said, "If we don't get going, we're not going to make it." And Quincy, the older by 2 minutes, the one we call the Buddha boy, was standing on top of the couch. And he said, "While we get going," as he takes his underwear off his head and throws it at his brother, "can we look at the dirt?" And I felt my head want to explode, but I knew something was happening. And so I went closer to him and I said, "Why do you want to look in the dirt?" Now, his brother was over in the corner, the one we call the accountant. So you can get the difference of the two. The one is the heart, the other is the mind. And he said, "Because he's a dirty boy and he's always dirty." He is always dirty. He likes getting dirty. And Quincy leaned forward. He said, "I do like the dirt. But the reason we need to look in the dirt, there's treasure in the dirt." And every part of me started chilling. Like right now, I have goose flesh all over. And I knew something was happening. And what he did, we did stop in the dirt. I totally forgot to be stressed out about the time. I became totally present in the moment. Of course, we were going to a park or something. We didn't have tickets. There was no urgency. We didn't show up where we were supposed to meet. The neighbors walked over, found us. Her kids started looking in the dirt. We all had this marvelous time looking in the dirt. And what that told me was center, become present, go with what is. And that's when everything started to shift for me. And when I began to open more, I began listening to a lot of summits like this and just became voraciously eager to learn how to open. And through that process, I began getting more and more messages, including, fast forward, I started working, I guess I was an intern, an unofficial intern with an energy healer who's a good deal older than me, Kenji Kumara. I still work with him, although now as colleagues. And I had been assisting him. I would drive from California to Arizona once a month to assist him in his workshops, all for free because I just needed the training. I began following what I was called to. When I first heard him on a telesummit, I knew there was something there. And in fact, what he calls me grandma, because on the last show that I heard him speak where I interacted with him, all the people before me that got called on were mothers, and talking about how do they move out of that role into what more is possible for them. So when I got called on, I said, I'm not the mother, but I'm the grandmother, and I know my time is coming to move on. And if you can cure me of this, then I'll be your grandmother. And he said, well, that'll be just send me checks. So it started and then about 2 months later, I met him in person, and it began this many-year journey of us being together as colleagues. So I was with him in Phoenix for a workshop, after which we were a group of people from the workshop came back to the house we rented because he lived in Sedona and I lived here. And he got this look that I didn't know at the time, but it's his, kind of, I'm getting something, I'm channeling something here. Look, it's not quite as dramatic as I just did. And he said, Beth, one of our friends was there who had a lot of physical problems. And he said, do that scanning thing you do on Norman. I said, what? And I was totally embarrassed. And I felt like he was so rude. Why are you outing me in this room? Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned and looked at me. And I said, don't do it on bodies. And he said, well, just pretend I'm your teacher. And in my head, I was like, you are. Just pretend I'm being guided. I think you are. Just pretend that you know how to do this. And go do that scanning thing on Norman's body. So what was I supposed to do? I mean, they know I had tried, but it didn't work. So I went and sat behind my friend, and I just took some breaths and closed my eyes and started moving my hands around his body. And I was scanning this process that I have that pretty much is only a yes or a no answer. I think you've experienced me scanning. It's where I tap in with my guides, your guides, whoever's guides, and ask, is this in their highest interest or not? And I started doing that on Norman's body. And all of a sudden, I could feel through my hands the energy coming out of his body. And I could feel it in ways that this was okay, this was not. And that's when I first, and his, Norman's reaction after, he'd had a very, very abusive life and been in bad car accidents, 2 or 3, 4 more, I don't even remember now, from when he was a child up to an adult. And he said, there are things in my body that you found that I had forgotten about, but were actually, I remember, yes, that's what happened when I injured this. And so he had been storing the trapped emotions of what was in his body from those physical experiences. And that's when I began understanding how I could connect with the crystalline structures of people. And then again, more recently, so, now the twins are 11, and a colleague and I that trade sessions said that Quincy sees people's energy like sacred geometry. And so I was talking with him about that, and he said, yes, I do, because he's very, he's a little boy. He doesn't talk about what he sees and what he feels, but he will be truthful about it. And so I showed him sacred geometry, and there was a flower of life, and I said, is one of these what you see for me? And I frequently see a flower of life extending over all my chakras when I'm meditating. And he said, that's what I see for you. And again, here was this really expansive, mind-blowing experience of, not that I thought I was making it up, but it's confirmed, I'm not making this up. This is happening, and I'm seeing things that you can't see with your naked eye. Now, I know some people see auras, some people, Lorna Byrne sees angels. I don't see them out here, but I see them in here. And so that's a new version, one that I've never shared before. Some of that you could have heard on other shows, but some of it is brand new to your beautiful show, from the mundane to magical, because it inspired that when I was meditating this morning about what to share. They said, don't worry, we'll tell you. So they just told me, so thank you. So that's how I got here. And the other thing, because I know a lot of people, are on their own version of this journey,
Mm.
where they've done this thing, this, mundane thing all their lives. And now they're sensing there's more, and what do I need to do, and how do I open to it? And so you definitely need to spend time in stillness and silence and meditating. You definitely need guides and coaches and teachers and mentors. And you also need to know that everything you've done up till now is part of the process, because the way I do what I do would not be the way I do it if I had not spent nearly 30 years as a lawyer. I rejected that for a while, and several of my teachers and mentors brought that up and said, don't, that's going to make you different. You're not just woo woo. You're this person who did this. You have one foot in the straight world and one foot in the energy world. And that was another real key point for me to understanding who I am and what I'm here to do, because I have a really good, strong, logical mind. Doesn't always serve me now. Showed up for a massage yesterday that was not happening. And then when I came home and looked at my calendar, I'm like, yeah, and I showed up an hour and 15 minutes earlier than what I had put on my calendar, which was not right anyway. But that used to make me crazy. And now I get the message. You're doing too much. You're moving too fast. You need to slow down and relax and restore. And that was another message I got for your audience today, is everybody needs to take a breath and ask your heart, is this meant for me to do or not? And if not, don't do it. And if you get the message, I know you've gone through this recently, where it doesn't make logical sense not to be pushing forward, and yet that's exactly what you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Challenging, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting one, and bringing it back to the title of the topic, the energy of flow. That's exactly what it is. When you're in that flow, it doesn't always make sense to your logical mind, and there is that internal battle. But one thing that I've certainly learned is that when I step out from the logical brain and just allow and surrender to what I'm being drawn to do, everything goes so much smoother and everything gets done. And that's what the logical brain kind of is freaking out about and can't work out, that, okay, well, if I don't actually put my foot to the metal and go and do, how is it all going to get done? That's a really beautiful part about being in flow that I've learned to love, but it has been a process.
It's challenging, especially if you were good. And I know you were in the business world. If you were successful in whatever way, whatever that looked like, it's real hard to let go of that processing because it worked.
Yeah.
So even, for example, the day that I messed up the massage, instead of getting upset, I did get a little confused. And then I brought myself back to my breath in the moment. And I said, okay, well, I'm out here and it's been super hot. It's been in the upper 90s here in Pasadena. And that makes me tend to stay in the house and not, I can't go do errands. But I was out and about in an area that I'm not normally in. There's a new hardware store there. I broke my hummingbird feeder 4 months ago. I've looked online. I keep thinking, I don't want to buy that one. I'm going to go to one. I never have gone at all. And then I remembered that a friend of mine told me that this new place opened up. I went there and found the perfect hummingbird feeder, set it up yesterday. And this morning I sat there and watched all the hummingbirds come. There was one here earlier, right before we started, and they've been gone from my yard for the most part, except when they come to the door, which is right here where I sit there to do my work and look out this door, and they've been coming there intermittently over the 4 months, just hovering, like looking at me like, what? Where's the feeder? And I never followed up. I mean, I thought about it all the time, but because I made that mistake, and this is a very small example, just to make it easy for people to understand how getting into being into flow can direct your life in ways you can't even imagine. I thought, well, I should go back that way when I left the massage spa thing. And then I said, no, don't go back that way. Go this way. Why? If you go that way, there's no street to. And I just let it go. I'm like, okay. And then as I was driving down this other street there, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's the Ace Hardware that just opened up. I went in, found it, and here we are. And I really needed that experience of having those creatures that I'm here. They're one of my main spirit animals, and they've been sorely lacking in presence in my life because I broke the feeder and didn't replace it for 4 months. So that's just a small example of how flow can work. I like your recent experience with it, where even getting this summit going was just, how is this going to happen? Because I'm not doing anything. And then it all of a sudden, you had the energy, you had the inspiration, you expanded the way you're doing it, and here we are. That's flow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a few months ago, I would have never thought that I would have been able to put this together. I mean, Spirit told me in the middle of the last summit in February that I was going to do another one in the fall, and I would have live speakers. And I freaked out. I was just like, whoa, I haven't even done this one. And that was my first one. And then I had like chronic fatigue after that summit, as I was integrating and processing all the energies. And I was just like, I just cannot see how this is going to come together. And then, like you say, I just allowed myself to surrender to it and go with it and trust. And then, yeah, it was just like magic. Suddenly, it's like the switch was flicked, and I was like, right, okay.
It was so fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, one day we were in communication and nothing was happening, and the next day I get everything I need to participate in this. I mean, we had the agreement that I would be on your summit, but nothing else was happening, and then all of a sudden, just like that. Yeah. And that's what happens when you let yourself hear those messages. So you had chronic fatigue. Well, I guess that's what it took for you to slow down and hear. And that's the other piece of flow, is that if you don't resist, you don't have to overdrink and pass out on your couch in the middle of the work week in order to get the message that this is not working for you and you need to do something else. Yeah. I could have gotten that. Well, I couldn't, but theoretically, one can get the message an easier way. And that's what I've learned about flow, is that the deeper you go, the more you trust, the more you get the help that you need to clear what blocks and obstructs that trust, to realign what's happening internally and energetically, to communicate with your body almost as a separate being, because it is always trying to inform you in alignment with your highest good and what Mother, Father, God, Source, everything is trying to tell you. The body doesn't lie. It can't. It doesn't have a mind break. This thing can really get you off track.
Yeah. Yeah, and I often find myself just literally asking myself, especially when something seems contradictory, like I got the guidance to do something and then, nothing was working out. And so I check in and I say, well, is this still in my highest and greatest good? Am I still meant to be doing this? And if I get the message, yeah, then it's like, okay, cool. I am where I am, but I trust that I'm going to be in the perfect place to get it together at the perfect time. And I now just kind of let go of all the angst about the fact that there's this contradiction in what seemed to be the flow at the time. And for me, I can honestly say that it has worked out every time when I've let go.
Yes. And you bring up a brilliant point, which is everything's energy, even our physical bodies, this computer, everything is energy. And it shifts. So the more dense energetic things like stuff in our bodies, it's denser. It takes more time for that to shift and change. I mean, a couch is not going to transform into a chair on its own. Its energy is locked in. But past that, energy shifts. So what's in your highest interest today may not be in your highest interest tomorrow, and yet is still in your highest interest for next week. And that's part of flow, is learning to read and understand and go with what is. So, for example, my younger daughter, who's not that young, I mean, young to me, but she's 30, she's getting into an ever expanded awareness of her own intuitive gifts. And that came about because she got really sick many years ago, was in a high stress job, a service job. She was working first as a teacher in a very low income neighborhood with kids who have tremendous trauma, and then became an intervention specialist for a school district. So she's working with the kids who are hardest hit of all of this. And it was just endless hours and endless stress. And she's an empath and didn't know it. So all that stuff coming at her was going in, and she had her own familial trauma and whatever all else had happened. And she, as you, chronic fatigue, Epstein-Barr, precancerous cells. I mean, every time you turn around, she had something else wrong with her, and she quit. All of it. She just quit and began her own version of my journey, and has learned how to flow, and she healed herself, changed everything, to the extent where I had been out of town, and we had a date for dinner that then morphed in, because I couldn't do it. I mean, I emotionally couldn't do it. Energetically, I guess, was a better way. And then we were thinking to have lunch the next day. And then she said, I need to spend the afternoon in stillness. So let's go with our original plan to just meet up for a late lunch, early dinner on Sunday. Now, years back, that would have annoyed me to no end, because we had a date and you're breaking the date so you can be in stillness, so you can have a relaxed afternoon. But now I respect it and I understand everything shifted. It shifted for me when I first made the offer. I made the date, and then I broke the date because I couldn't do it. And then he said maybe, but turned around and said can't do it. I need to stay home in my little cottage in the woods and just be with nature and with source. And that's part of flow too, is knowing that all of that is okay, whether it's because for me, keeping my word used to be more important than how I felt. If you and I had a date and it wasn't working for me, I would have showed up anyway and had a weird time or a miserable time, or maybe it would have been a great time. It could have been anything, but I would have been forcing it. It would have been coming from my mind. You made a date. You must be honorable and keep that date. In my heart would be squeezing, saying, but it's not right. And now I've learned to do it the other way. Let the heart lead and let the mind follow. And yeah, sometimes you show up for a massage appointment that doesn't exist. But that doesn't happen very often. You see, once you get in the flow, you take time to learn how to do it. And yes, you have to be forgiving with yourself, with others, and with the energy of the day. And it ends up being where, like you, it felt uncomfortable. You didn't like that you weren't making things happen in the orderly, timely way that you thought that it was supposed to be happening. And yet, once you gave yourself what you needed, it all came together like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just slipping into that ease and grace, not fighting anymore, not struggling, not engaging in that energy of frustration and conflict. One thing that I really wanted to ask was, do you have, I mean, I know, you do and I do, open up to receiving, although that is something that I am still working on. But do you have some practical tips for the audience as to how, say, somebody on their beginning awakening journey can start to open up to allowing themselves to receive? Because for me, that was a really big thing. The realization that actually I wasn't comfortable. I had so many blocks to allowing myself to receive, because it was all about ensuring other people were okay. It didn't matter if I, harmed myself, as long as everybody else was all right. And so I feel that that's a really big first kind of thing to enable people to kind of step into flow, but then also to align with the abundance that is all around us and available to us.
I think you are honing in on the center of it all is that it's not anything, nothing in the esoteric, metaphysical, spiritual world is going to work if you don't allow yourself to receive. And that means, just like on an airplane, when they say, in the event of an emergency, put your oxygen mask on first, and then you can assist others. It's really 10,000 times more important when you're opening to your own intuitive gifts to do that. Because without that space of opening to receive, without actively entering into a self-care practice that is going to allow you to be comfortable to receive, it's not going to happen. This is not widget work. There are techniques and tips, and there are many things. I mean, I can teach people all manner of things, but it all starts with receiving. Are you willing to let go of what was, what is, in order to open to what more could be for you? And until you're willing to do that, it's not going to happen. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing is more time in stillness and silence. Because with all the chatter, and I don't even just mean audience sound, like talking chatter, I mean energetic chatter. I was recently spent the weekend by the beach in Santa Barbara, and the people that I was with, they could not stop being on their phones and their devices. Now, it's part of their work, and so they have to keep a kind of half eye on what's happening because of the business they're in. And yet you cannot move into yourself, into an opening to a space that's going to allow the divine to come through if you're always turning out, whether that's to help someone else, to serve someone else, to do your job, or always to distract yourself with entertainment and even music. I've always I like jazz, and I would turn the radio to the jazz station on for years and years and years, first thing in the morning. And, there's nothing invasive about that kind of music. And yet, in the process of moving into who I am now, I stopped doing that. I sometimes am just here in my house in absolute quiet and stillness because I need that. So take that to the next step. That means meditate. A daily practice of meditation. If there was one thing I could tell your audience that they need to do, and if they're already doing it, deepen it and expand it, that would be meditation, because that's the portal to open your heart, your mind, your soul to the other realms. And I think for people who don't meditate, or they think, they get their minds worked up, the egoic mental mind, personas, whatever it is, tell them, oh, I can't do that. Well, you're not expanding your thinking big enough, because meditation is not simply sitting here and waiting. That's one form. Chanting is another. Walking in nature is another. Gazing at an image, or the stars, or a plant, or walking in nature and feeling everything. Walking in nature without headsets, without a time frame. I mean, yes, maybe you do have only so much time to do it, but while you're there, forget about it all and just look at the trees and feel the energy of the earth, receive that. That's all meditation. I could go on. Dancing, that's another form of meditation, of connecting. So if meditation to you feels like something I'm no good at, or I can't do it, then I challenge you to expand your idea of what it is, because everything I just said, and I do not recommend this for beginners, but for me, where I am now, one of my ways of receiving is to watch old Law and Order. I don't know how prominent that show is in Europe, but it's long-running, long-standing cops and robbers in courtroom movie show. And watching the old reruns, it takes my mind over here because of my legal background, and it opens, well, actually, this side, the left brain, it takes it over there, and then it opens this one, and I often receive guidance and inspiration and downloads while I'm watching Law and Order, because I'm not really watching it, if that makes sense. I'm just zoning. Now, again, I am not suggesting that the average person watch television as a form of meditation. I am saying that if you tune in to what works for you, what takes you out of your left brain and into your right, washing dishes, sweeping the floor, gardening, these are all forms of mindfulness, of meditation, if they're done in that way. Now, if you're doing it as something that has to be done and you're whipping through it, then it's not that. But then, so too is silent meditation is not meditation if you're, I'm meditating, I am meditating. It's 5 minutes, it's been a minute. Okay, it's another minute. I mean, that's not meditating. At least it's not successfully meditating. So that's the number one thing I would recommend to people, to move into a sacred state where you can enter a flow zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And just another thing that I wanted to kind of clarify for everybody is what do we mean by abundance? Because like when people say the word abundance, you automatically imagine financial abundance, money and things like that. But it is so much more than that. It's so much more expansive than that. And I know since I left my corporate job, which was very well paid, you know, a high authority, good status and all that, you would have said I was abundant then.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely left and walked away from everything to no income. But I personally felt that I stepped into abundance, true abundance, in that moment when I actually let go of all of the financial benefit that I had from the job that wasn't resonating with me at all. So just so just kind of, you know, just to clarify, what else is there about abundance that we're actually opening ourselves up with when we're actually aligning with flow and opening ourselves to this crystalline light of expansiveness and all that is?
Well, true abundance means that you have abundance in all areas of your life. A sick person with a lot of money is not really experiencing an abundant flow. I remember hearing a story of a woman who had been born rich, made a lot of money, was a multimillionaire, and was afraid from day one. And she lived a very long life. She was in her early 90s when she made her transition. And until just about 2 weeks before she died, because of the work that she was doing to clear what kept her from truly being abundant, she spent her whole life fearing poverty. No matter how much money she had, she was afraid that it wasn't enough and it was going to evaporate in whatever all else that she was running in her mind. That's not abundance. So too, I've heard a story of many times, different versions, but Oprah Winfrey went to India. I don't know anything more, but just this little snippet of the story, and somehow ended up going to these people's hovel for tea. Now, how and why, I don't know. But the story goes that everything in their house, they had 2 or 3 children, and then the parents, there was one room with a dirt floor and everything. You know, they could reach here for the cups, they reach here for the teapots, the little stove is right there. The only minute, you know, everybody's just sitting closely. And she said, I've never met happier people in my life. That's abundance. Obviously, they don't have money if they're living in a dirt floor hovel that's so small that you can reach the entire thing. And mind you, as I'm saying this, it's dawning on me, clearly there was no bathroom in there either. So they must have had some other outdoor place where they went to use the facilities. So in any regular first world view, that is not abundance, and yet they were happy. Mm-hmm. So in order for you to have an abundant flow in life, you've got to have good health. You do need to be able to pay your bills and have enough to do what you need to do. You have to have meaningful work. You have to be of service. You have to have good relationships. Because when you have all of this, then you begin to flow. Mm-hmm. So one of the examples in my own life of this was, I've been out here in California for 8 years. I was 53 when I moved. I had a very big social circle in Chicago. And then I come out here and I've got my 2 kids. They were adults, but my 2 kids and these grandchildren. And I had one friend, one of my high school friends, had moved out here many years ago, and that was it. And it was very hard for me to meet people because I didn't really fit with the people that I met hanging out with the kids. I was too old to be a mom. I was not a traditional nanny. I would find that I would have relationships with people that would be very strong for a time, and then something would shift. Their kid would go to school, or they would no longer be coming to that park. And, so I was very lonely for quite some time and just adjusting to the whole thing. And then I made a few friends, and they weren't really working for me, or it was like, I can do this with you, but I can't do that. I felt very unfulfilled. And so I stopped trying because I was efforting too much. And I turned the attention back to me. What is stopping me from being happy in every moment? And did the work I needed to do to clear the ideas and the patterns and the paradigms and the limiting thoughts that made me not able to have rewarding relationships. And one of the key factors in that was when I realized it was a kind of a joint realization and guidance coming through. You felt this way in Chicago when you had dozens of friends and lots of options. You felt unfulfilled in the relationships that you had. You felt like something was missing. What is that clearly cannot be the answer is out here. The answer must be in here. And so I did all this work to shift and to come into, that was when I was really beginning to understand a flow state and doing the work to clear the layers that stopped me from being present in the moment and seeing and experiencing the brilliance and beauty and joy that is available right here, right now. If you look around, wherever you are when you're watching this, there is something to bring beauty and joy to you wherever you are, if you're willing to receive it. Mm-hmm. And so I did all this work, and I also then let myself release the expectation of what these relationships were supposed to do, one of which was fulfill me, right? Nobody is supposed to bring me to wholeness. Yeah. Maybe I'm just supposed to have coffee with this person. Maybe I'm just supposed to go see a concert with this person. And not that person is supposed to make me feel unbounded joy in every moment. That's for me. That's for me with my relationship with all that is, to feel that. And once I did that work, I now found great satisfaction in these same formerly unsatisfying relationships, because I moved out of judgment, attachment, expectation, and into a greater flow state of understanding that if I resist what's happening in this moment, whatever that is, I'm not going to be flowing abundantly. I'm going to be in tension and resistance and not a good state of being. But if instead I receive what's happening and allow myself to know that from within all is and will be well, no matter what the outer circumstances, and to understand that sometimes you're just going to feel funky. Yeah. That's just how it is. Every day is not going to be sunshine and unicorns and stars and hummingbirds all day. You're going to, especially if you're an empath, you're going to pick up on stuff that's coming from without. And it's your job to understand and do the work to learn how to shift out of what you're receiving and how to protect yourself. I think, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to what you said before. The way my guides put it is that you're the center of your own universe. If you didn't exist in it, nobody else would. And so it starts and ends with you. There is nothing out there that can give you joy. It's doing the work in here that opens you up to experiencing the joy in every moment that actually exists, when you're open to actually connecting with that energetic flow. And so, for me, whenever something happens that triggers me, rather than kind of diving into the drama of it all, I now kind of step back and go, oh, that's really interesting. Okay, is that mine? Where is that within me? Or is this just, because I am a channel and I am an empath? Am I just picking this up from, is it somebody else's that I can just go, actually, that's not mine. I can just hand that over to my guides to transmute.
Perfect. That is a perfect expression of the process.
Mm.
And the main thing is to remember to do it.
Yes.
Because if you let yourself get whipped up by whatever's happening out there, then now you're in a whole nother state, not flow.
Yeah, and it is so easy, especially in the current climate where the energies coming into the planet are so strong, and they are kind of like, bringing everything up to the surface for transmutation. It feels really chaotic. There's all sorts of things, and there's so much fear being expressed in the media and everything else, that it is really important sometimes, just to kind of shut off from that and go into that still place, if you cannot be in that energy and be in your own still space within that energy. But it is really important that, we're human and we are going to get sucked into it from time and again, but it's when you catch yourself that you kind of go, oh yeah, okay.
And even when you catch yourself, sometimes whatever it is that you're doing is something you need to continue, but you do it in a different way. You're not as invested or attached to it as you would have been if you hadn't had the recognition. Maybe you need to go down that rabbit hole. Maybe you need to watch the news. Maybe you need to get involved in pursuing some insanity that's happening. And sometimes I think as empaths and light workers and healers, it's our duty to know just enough about what's happening so that we can have the proper focus to send the light, the love, the healing, to bring the energy down through and out our heart space, to send it to wherever it's needed. And for some of us that are intuitive enough, you don't need that external knowledge, but sometimes you do. For example, Hurricane Dorian, that's been raging over the Bahamas and making her way up the east coast of America. I, in the past, was rather addicted. I think that's the proper word. Very interested and slightly addicted in the Weather Channel. When I lived in Chicago, I found it fascinating, and I watched the Weather Channel a lot. When I came out here, the way they do it and what they're reporting is different, and it wasn't so intriguing. So I don't have that same attachment. And yet, in order for me to know where to direct my energy to assist in healing the earth, the ocean, the people, to do whatever protection I can, whatever healing I can, I need to know a little bit about where it is. So I'll check in and then I leave it. I don't go crazy watching the videos of the destruction and the people screaming for help on top of the roofs like I did years back when I was in Chicago and Hurricane Katrina hit. I just spent hours and hours every day, literally getting sucked in to the pain and the sorrow and the fear of those people, because I didn't understand what to do. Now it's like, okay, Dorian's here. Thank you. That's all I need to know. I sink in, take my moment, send the energy, do my healing, bubble up whatever I'm working on, and then move on. Because bringing yourself down is not going to bring anything else up.
Yeah.
So knowing how you process energy, information, and emotions, especially those coming from without, is key to knowing how you can first protect yourself from untoward impact and influence from all this negativity that's going on all over the planet, and then discerning what is yours to do and how to do it to make a difference. So, for example, the last hurricane season, I can't even remember the name of the hurricane. A very dear friend of mine had family. Well, she did this time too, but they weren't in the same, because the hurricane pattern was different. She wasn't freaking out. But last year, when the hurricane was coming and her son and his wife were in its path, this is a woman who's the only one left in her biological family. Younger brother's gone, older brother, everybody else is gone. So there's a lot of trauma associated with the fear of someone else dying. And I said, okay, I'm going to really work on this because it's very important to not just my friend, but to everyone. And I did some really, really deep processed work to hold that energy off the coast of Florida. It was exhausting. And then I had to reboot and say, okay, show me how I can do this differently so that I'm not taking myself out. And then I was guided to shift here, to do this there, to ground different. One of the things which is good for anyone who's empathic is instead of connecting above and below, to ground into the earth, pull the energy up around you so that you create and down from of this heavens to create a cocoon. It's a more powerful way of being grounded and expanded and protected all at once. So I began to do that, and then it took me out less to do that earth work. The other thing was that I was doing work with the earth. Now that's depending on your view of what all the bad things are that are happening. You might think, well, the earth isn't doing anything wrong. Well, no, the earth is not doing anything wrong, but she's suffering from all the trauma that we're putting upon her. So I was doing earth work and didn't even know I was doing it, which is another reason why it's important for people to get the training and the mentoring, the coaching, whatever word you want to put to it, to learn the processes so that you don't do what I did. I was trading sessions with a colleague who said, your energy, your whole energy is off. Your field is off. It's so depleted. It's like if how a helium balloon looks after a few days, where it's just kind of shriveled and shrunk. It's not popped, but it's just not vibrant anymore. Have you been doing any big work? And I said, no. And she kept questioning me. And then I said, well, when I walk in my nature park, I was, sending energy to the trees, because with all the heat from climate change, the trees are really suffering here in Southern California. And she started laughing and said, that's huge work. I said, it is? To me, I was just going about my walk saying, here's love, heal, love. And she said, you can't do that. You can't do that without being ready and protecting yourself. And that's when I learned, and this was a year and a half ago. I've been doing this work professionally for full time for 3 years. But that's the other thing that's very important is you're never done. You're never done clearing. You're never done healing. You're never done learning. I said years ago, I don't want to learn another thing. That was probably 15 years ago. I don't want to learn anything, and I don't want to teach anybody, because my family, there's a lot of teachers in my family. And that resistance was something I had to drop in order to come to wholeness, into an abundant flow. I had to drop my resistance and to what I am, who I am, and let the idea of what that looks like change. I don't teach in a college. I don't teach in a classroom, unless I make the classroom by calling it a workshop. But I had to go through a lot to come to the place to be able to receive that. And as long as I was in resistance to that calling for what more I am here to do, then I was not living in an abundant flow. You can't flow and resist at the same time. It doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I have realized on my journey is that you kind of, it kind of comes in stages though. You go through your resistances, you do your clearances, you do the restructuring, the healing, and then you get into a bit of flow, and that will then trigger something else for you. And it's a bit like peeling the layers off an onion. It may still be an aspect of the core wound that you started doing the work on initially, but it looks a slightly different way, but it's been triggered because you've allowed yourself, you surrendered, you've gone into this flow, and it pops up. And so then you do that bit, and then you relax and surrender, and you go into flow again, and then another one pops up. But for me, one thing that I've kind of experienced is that it's, I guess because I've shifted, that when they pop up, it's not like there's this big huge thing. it's like, oh wow, okay, interesting, that's you again. Okay, so so what do I need to do? What do I need to let go of? Or there's this slight attachment to this thing now I need to just work on, and release and surrender to and be okay about, before I can then kind of slide into flow again.
Perfect. That's exactly right. I had a very strange day yesterday. I was fine and then I wasn't, and nothing happened. I was at that nature park and I still don't know what happened to take me out. Did I pass by someone? I am empathic. I do not consider myself and never have considered myself to be an empath. And yet that lack of considering myself that sometimes gets me into trouble, because when you're open, it doesn't matter what label you put on it, you are open. Everything is energy. So, my energetic field is 20 feet around. And when I'm walking this path around this park, I'm passing within 20 feet of all the other people who are walking. Did I pick up something there? Maybe. Did I pick up something in my car? Maybe. I left there, went to yoga. And by the time I got to yoga, I was a crazy person. And I was angry and upset. And I'm observing this and saying, what is wrong with me? What is happening to me? Who is happening to me? Which is a very, very good question. When you have an experience like that where you're fine and then you're not, take it over there. Don't always think it's you. What's wrong with me? Because a lot of times the way it happens to me is there hasn't been an actual interaction. Nothing really did happen. And yet now I'm out of sorts. So again, if I move into what you're saying of just noticing that, allowing it and not resisting it, I can move out of it better. So one of my yoga buddies came by me as I was setting up my mat and said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I feel really weird and I don't know why. And I am really counting on this class to make me feel better because I don't want to feel this way." And she leaned forward because I was down on the ground. And she said, no matter what we seek to be, we are still always human beings. And sometimes the breath work on the mat is going to be enough to move us out. And sometimes it's going to take something else. Sometimes in the middle of this room full of people, we feel alone, and that even though we know if we were logically going to think about all the people that we could call to talk to or to be with, that we have people in our lives that love us, that we love, that's not always going to be enough either. Sometimes you just have to let the weird happen until it moves its way out. Just let it go. Just let it go. Let the idea go. Let the whole thing go. And let the idea that this class is going to make everything better. Sometimes it does. And sometimes what's all happening out there takes a little bit longer. And those words changed everything, because then I was able to actually breathe a sigh of relief and let go of that, I'm going to get fixed from breathing in yoga. And I was better. And then I came home and I started feeling weird again. And that's when I realized I have not taken a shower since whenever it was. And I could feel, it's been hot here, so I was feeling sticky. And that's when I realized I have picked some stuff up, some energetic stuff up. And I took a long restorative salt bath with some essential oils, and then I meditated, and then I felt better. Now, mind you, as I was moving through all of this, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, right? I'm taking my time in stillness in nature. I'm going to yoga. I'm doing breath work. I'm, doing everything I'm supposed to do. But what I really needed to do was cleanse my physical energetic stuff, the smudge that I picked up, and then reboot with another silent meditation, and I've been fine ever since. Honestly, when that was going on yesterday, I thought about this and I'm like, I can't do that. I was so off. I actually thought, I cannot do this. And then I just followed through, because salt baths and working with essential oils and whatever you need to reset your body is another way that you move into an abundant flow state. And at the time I was feeling all weird at yoga, that wasn't even in my mind. But then I came home and my body, once again, your body will not lie. My body kept saying, feel the sweat, feel the sticky. And that wasn't the problem. It wasn't that I was dirty. It was that I had picked something up that I needed to wash off and out. And once I did that, I was able to come back to myself. And here we are, because otherwise I was going to be emailing you and saying, we need a new date because I cannot go to your community in this compromised state. And then I had such a productive evening, and it changed everything. To allow myself to receive what my yoga buddy said, that it's okay if this doesn't fix it. It's okay. It's this right now, this is how it is, and this too shall pass. So that really eased the striving to fix it. Yeah. And then to come home and cool off and feel into the funkiness and let my body say, you need to take a restorative salt bath. And there it was. Here we are. I'm doing great. I'm back in a flow state.
But the funny thing is that one of the other speakers did do that at the last minute, just said, my energy's all over the place and I can't do this. And I was like, no worries. You know, I know that the perfect message will come from the perfect people at the perfect time. And that wasn't it. And I've experienced that myself with a client where that need to, you know, I've made a commitment, that need to keep that commitment, that mental mind need. And I did the session and I really wasn't in the place to be the open channel and nothing was coming through. And, you know, I was like, oh my God, this is awful because nothing's coming through. And afterwards I said, you know, I shouldn't have done that session because I wasn't feeling it beforehand. I should have said no, but, you know, my ego was saying I must keep this commitment. And so now I don't do that. You know, and I say that to my clients, you know, if either way, if it's not feeling like it's the right time, doesn't matter what the reason is, it's all good because neither of us is going to get, you know, what needs to take place within that session if we are pushing against our flow in that moment and we're then closed off to receiving whatever it is the universe has to give us in that moment. So I learned that massively with that.
Yes, and one of the things that might even be happening in that situation, I mean, sometimes it is us and sometimes it's the other. So it could very well be, I'm not saying in any of the specific situations, I don't know what happened in those specific situations you're referencing, but sometimes it's the other person's energy that they're not acknowledging that's blocking the flow. If they're not ready to receive, there's nothing I can do to give.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's why what you're saying is so important. Whatever it is, you need to be honest, fearlessly honest with yourself to know what is in my highest interest to do at this point. And if that is to say, no, I'm not going to lunch with you, even though you were going to treat me, I'm going to stay here in my little cottage and hang out with the trees, then that's what you have to do. That's the same thing as that put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And the other thing you mentioned that's very important, you said time. Time is an artificial man-made construct. And as far as it's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock, it's September 5th, whatever the date is, it's 2019. That's not real. What is real is the nonlinear time of flow that is coming ever, ever, ever more strongly into the planet. It's why people are feeling pressed. It's why people get confused about what's happening when they're trying to make something happen and they're doing their best and it's not working because they're not in alignment with the nonlinear energy that's coming through. So again, the example of going to the massage appointment that didn't exist, getting upset about that was only going to make everything worse because you made a mistake. And in the past, I would have wanted to sort it, to dissect it. I would have wanted to find a blame for it. You see this happening often with tragedies where, some big tragedy happens and people are just going in to find who's to blame. Let that go. It's not necessary to find blame. Just send love, send light, let what is, and allow what more is coming to come. Now, obviously, we're in the 3D world, so we have to honor appointments and keep appointments. But more important than that, we have to honor ourselves. And we have to honor our connection with source and with spirit. And when that means you say, as that speaker did, my energy's all over the place, it's not the right day for me to do this, then your part of that is to receive that truth and allow it, to not resist it, to not judge it, and to just, that's flow. That's an abundant flow. So maybe you don't have a show for that day, or maybe you run a replay, or maybe you yourself, the brilliant you, the magnificent, mundane to magical Louise, you do the show that day. You just be willing. That's flowing abundantly, is being willing to go with what is happening, even when that doesn't look like what you think it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, and that's a really essential point, I think, because your ego mind will dictate, oh, it's got to look like this, and we miss so much because we've determined that it has to look like this. Well, abundance can look any which way, and quite often looks nothing like what your mind has set out, because actually your mind is so limited on what is actually possible. It has no idea. And so when the universe brings you this amazing abundance, if you're so fixed on what it should look like, quite often you miss it because you're just not looking for that, you're not accepting it. So it really is about letting go of all that judgment and expectation, and just allow
in
it.
that fixedness, you're not able to receive what the divine is bringing through. You'll miss it.
Absolutely.
And then you're going to have to hear it again, and it might be harder when it's coming through the next time, because they're trying to get your attention. And if you're not listening, it's the Jewish Kabbalah concept of tikkun. They come in as a whisper, the messages, what more you're to do. And if you don't pay attention to the whisper, then it's a little smack. And you still don't pay attention, then it's a sledgehammer to the head. I mean, that's just the way, that's the order of the universe. So it's better to listen and to say, I can't do this show, than it is to push forward and do something that's out of alignment with, that person, had they proceeded, could have put something out into the world through this video format that's going to be out there theoretically for eternity, so that everyone in the audience receives that, not who they really are the rest of the time. And how much damage would that do?
Yeah, because all of these video interviews, there's all light encodements that have been transmitted through, irrelevant in a way what is being said. It's the energy behind it. So when you turn up, when you show up and you're not in your highest and greatest good energy, then that's basically what you're putting out into the field, and that's also then what's magnetizing back towards you. So it's really
that's a perfect point about abundance, when you said, so what does it mean to be in an abundant flow? Sometimes what it means to be in an abundant flow is to know I'm not, and I need to honor that until I can get out of this state and back into it, as opposed to fiercely pushing forward because I am a person who flows and I'm going to flow. Sometimes you're not. And sometimes you're just going to have to let all of the non-flow work its way out so you can get back into flow.
Absolutely. We could talk about this forever and a day, I think, but it's over an hour now. We've been talking about an hour and 10 minutes. So there's just a couple of things that I wanted to go through, because you have very, very generously provided the audience with a special offer. And the special offer page, if anybody wants to go and check that out, is www.mundanetomagicalliving.com/season little hyphen to hyphen Beth BETHS hyphen special hyphen offer / and there's 2 packages that are available. The first of which is a 2-part workshop all about the energy of flow, which includes a live Q&L, question and answer session. And there's also channeled energy infused Fibonacci series activations, which are incredibly powerful. And also the monthly energy healing call. So there's 3 MP3s of Beth's monthly energy healing calls that she has with her subscribers. That's a subscribed thing, isn't it, that you do? And that's all of that, which I can't remember the amount, the value of the whole package if you were to pay full price, but it's actually for $127 for the audience. And then there's package B, which includes all of that plus a 1-to-1 energetic body blueprint scan, which is what Beth was talking about before, where she scans your energy field and does some clearing and realignment to clear any blocks or anything that's hindering you actually aligning with this crystalline light of abundance and allowing yourself to get into your flow. And that, including everything that I said before with the 1-to-1, is only for $197. And again, if you go on to the special offer page, you'll be able to see what the actual full value of that package would be if you were to pay full price.
And I was just guided to offer to the first 5 purchasers of package A, which does not include the private session, the energetic body blueprint scan. For the first 5 purchasers, you're going to get the upgraded package, but pay for the package A.
Oh, wow.
And I'm getting chills. So apparently there's 5 people in your community who need a bit of a break on that financial piece to get that work. So for the first 5 people who buy package A, you'll get package B.
Wow, that's amazing. That's like ultra generous. So yay, that's abundance
for you.
That's abundance at work.
There it is. That's abundance at work.
That's amazing. So yeah, I mean, I highly recommend connecting with Beth, following her work, and taking advantage of these packages. I mean, I've worked with Beth. I'm currently working with Beth. As I say, we're all on our own journeys. Even though I am in flow and I do feel that I'm connected with a lot more abundance than I ever have been, I still have some blocks. I still have some aspects that I'm working through. And it's that process that as we journey through and we allow ourselves to surrender to flow, that next layer pops up, and that just needs clearing. It just needs our awareness of it, and to be in that space where we have that assistance. We're working with somebody that we can kind of bat things to and fro, and all of our guides can connect in and have a chat and tune into exactly what the issue is so it can be cleared. Because it doesn't matter who you are, how long you've been on this journey for. Sometimes we all need somebody to kind of just assist us onto our next highest level. So highly recommend working with Beth. And as you can see, she's a beautiful energy and a beautiful soul.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to that, and then if you notice me turning this way, that's the doors to my outdoor garden. So the first thing is, doctors don't treat themselves. There's some famous saying that a doctor who has himself or herself or a patient is a fool. Therapists have therapists. Light workers, healers, channelers need that support too. We all need help. And the second thing is a lizard. It's a gecko lizard, just 3 times, but this last time I had to look, and I scanned while you were talking. Look up, you and everyone else who this resonates with, look up the spirit animal meaning of a lizard, because that lizard has a message for this community. So I'm going to look it up when I get off the recording, And I encourage anyone that resonates with, because that lizard is trying to give a message to us all, as well as what you just said, that we all need help along our journey.
Absolutely. And funnily enough, the lizard was one of the first spirit guides that I ever connected with.
See?
So yeah.
They're here. And it's definitely it's not necessary. There's information available from the lizard for anyone who's listening to this. But again, take that time, tune into your heart. Is this for me? And then look it up and ask again, is this information for me? And then you're going to know, yes, it is, because there have also been hummingbirds and butterflies, and those were not coming through with the same energetic mission as that lizard, because it's the same one that keeps going back and forth. And this last time, he came very prominently to my attention, which is why I went like that. So I encourage everyone to explore that and let your heart lead you where it goes with the information and inspiration of the lizard.
Excellent. Is there anything else that your guides or you want to share with the audience that you feel needs to be shared before we sign off? I'm just aware of the time, but I'm just opening the space if there feels to be anything that's been left unsaid at the moment.
The only thing, let me say that differently. The thing that is coming through most strongly right now is wherever you are, whatever you're going through, this too shall pass. And if you flow love, if you stay out of fear, not rejecting it, not pushing it away, but recognizing it, as Louise and I have talked about throughout the course of this session, if you allow the fear, recognize it, thank it, be grateful for it. Another key to flowing abundance is gratitude. And then let it go and come back into a heart-based, heart-centered state of love, the energy and frequency of love. You're going to get through this. You are going to get through this. There are some people that are going to hear this that are really feeling that there's no answer, and there always is. There always is, and it always starts right here. Open your heart and allow the divine to reach you and touch you with love. Allow me, allow Louise to serve you in love and light, and know this too shall pass.
That's a really lovely way to end the conversation on, because that's certainly got me through a lot of major trigger points on my journey, just knowing that. And it is so true. It doesn't matter where you're at, this too shall pass. Nothing, energy moves. Change is the only constant in the universe. So absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Beth, for coming on the show. And I know you were hoping to be live with audience interaction, but this has been absolutely perfect, and I'm sure that everybody will have received the perfect message for them, no matter when they're listening in on this call. So thank you for sharing your light. Thank you for sharing your energy and your wisdom. It's been absolutely beautiful chatting with you today.
Thank you for having me. I'd love to come back and do it live.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. That would be
great. Thank you.
All right. So thank you to everybody else for joining us, for sharing this space with us, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got lots of takeaway points. Remember, there is a Facebook Live group if you feel into joining that, so that you can leave any comments or any feedback. But otherwise, on the email that you received this interview, there's also my email address. So if you just wanted to contact me directly and feed anything back, any feedback I collect will be shared with the speakers. And I always think that's a beautiful gift back to the speakers when they give us their time and their energy to share this space with us. So have a fantastic rest of your day, no matter where you are in the world or what time you're listening and watching this. And I shall see you again on the next call. Take care. Bye.
Bye.